We are live. Final Cut Pro Radio TV. We're live. And today we have my very special guests. We have Chris Damaris and Terry Morgan from LumaTouch. Now, I always get confused whether to call it LumaTouch, LumaFusion. I know LumaFusion is specifically the application for the NLE. So where does LumaTouch come in? How does that come into the name of the company? Is that what that is?
Yes.
That's that's right. The LumaTouch is the name of the company, and LumaFusion is the product name. Yeah, and we don't mind. People often just say Luma or Fusion, and we're okay with that too.
But I see LumaTouch all the time, and I said, okay, I thought it was called LumaTouch, the actual app.
Yeah.
So I went to NAB last year, and a good friend of mine, Steve Martin from Ripple Training, was raving about LumaFusion. So based on that, I went out and bought it. That was almost a year ago.
Thank you. How do you like it?
Well, we'll get into that. I don't know, you guys are doing some like magic to get all this stuff onto an iPad. You're getting full NLE features, some features that the full NLEs don't even have, and you're cramming it into an iPad somehow. So,
Right.
so one of the interesting things is both of you worked for Avid at one point.
Yes, we did. We have both worked for several different companies. I've worked for Lightworks and Pinnacle Studio and our Pinnacle Systems, and then Avid, and that's where I met Chris. We were working on Avid Studio for iPad, which was our first foray into video editing on an iPad, and that eventually became Pinnacle Studio for iPad, and at the point when Avid sold our team to Corel, Chris and I decided it was time to go off on our own and put what we learned over many years into our own company. So,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Yeah. So, a lot of what comes in the iPad, was learned over a lot of years. And first of all, I have to give a lot of credit to Apple, because Apple has highly optimized the capabilities of the iPad for audio and video. We build on top of what they've given us. And so a lot of the smoothness of the 4K video comes from what Apple did. And then we added our magic of just, listening to our users to add features that, the professional editors want, into the app itself.
So one of the questions I was going to ask you is if you worked with Apple.
Well, we do have a lot of nice connections at Apple, and they've been very helpful to us. But most of it is just using the APIs. In fact, all of it's using the APIs that they publicly make available. And so, Apple's done a good job of creating examples of, editing capabilities and effects capabilities within their foundations. And then it's just a matter of, taking what we know of editors and what we've done in the past, with bigger systems to build a complete video editing system on top of what Apple's provided.
Have you ever had a reason to be in touch with the Final Cut Pro team, or whatever that team is, the people involved?
Well, funny is, I actually have one of my old coworkers from Avid, is also on the Final Cut Pro team, and we actually haven't gotten in detail with them, as far as technical questions or anything like that. But we do stay in touch.
Okay, but nothing to do with LumaFusion.
No, actually, no. It's been, really a separate development from day one, and Apple has noticed us recently and promoted us as part of their latest iPad Pro press tour. But that's been actually a fairly recent thing.
But we are working on XML export to Final Cut Pro, which will, we'll be working to make that as seamless as possible. So that might bring us.
Yeah, and we do have a connection. The person who developed FCP XML and who continues to develop that, he's offered his help along the way, and so we'll be in touch with him as we need it along the way.
That is probably one of the #1 requests that I've seen is XML export. So that makes your LumaFusion even more valuable, because people can do their edits, do rough cuts, and then they can still get it into Final Cut Pro. That is going to be amazing when that happens.
Yeah, it's in beta right now, and so we're working every 2 weeks. We're adding a little bit more functionality, and we hope to have that out around NAB this year. And yeah, it's been great. But I think what we believe is that a lot of projects won't need to go to Final Cut to finish. But there are projects that just require certain things that you want to do on a desktop editor, and certain finishing formats and so on. So this is going to be really exciting for us.
Absolutely, but you're absolutely correct. When I started, I worked on LumaFusion this morning before this interview, and I'm amazed. I don't know how you cram so many features. I mean, nobody else has done this for a video editing piece of software on the iPad. You have so many features. You have audio ducking, for example. You can rearrange windows on the iPad.
Right. Yeah, we spent a lot of time, one of the things when we first started working on LumaFusion, we worked with mobile journalists as sort of our core audience. And so a lot of the features like audio ducking came from that group of customers. And then as we've expanded, we listen to our customers and listen to the features they want. And luckily we have a lot of experience in building, our first experience building Pinnacle Studio for iPad really helped us learn the uniqueness of having to work on a touch interface and trying to fit a lot of features in there. Sometimes it's easier than other times with some of those features, especially on an iPhone, in fact.
Yeah, that's the challenge.
Going from the iPad to the iPhone would be a little difficult for me because my fingers are too big. The iPad seems like a nice way to touch. But one of the things I've noticed about Final Cut Pro 10 from the very beginning, it seems like you should touch it. A lot of the elements, it almost seems like you should actually touch some of the things. So I'm not sure if that's just the way you designed it, that's just graphical or what that is.
Yeah.
So Kyle Lowe Creative on the chat says, how do we sign up for the beta? Is that a public beta?
Well, right now it's not a public beta, and right now we're only testing XML export. So if they want to sign up, they can email us at info@luma-touch.com, and we can sign them up that way. I mean, all we ask is that, people who do sign up are going to provide feedback through our Slack channel that we provide because we're a small team and extra noise doesn't really help us produce. So, but extra information and some people that are going to be really active, we really want them to sign up. So,
yes, I've been on a few betas, different companies, and you're right. If I'm not providing feedback, why am I even there? I'd usually tell them it's not like I thought it was going to be, and I'll drop out.
Yeah, so, but we do want the feedback. So
and we're happy to have new beta testers too.
Yeah.
So what was that address again?
It's info@luma-touch.com.
There you go. So it's a comment on Twitter that I received. Once I posted this yesterday, Stoke Dog says, Luma Touch is an amazing app. Of course, LumaFusion. And Drew Media from Australia said, LumaFusion is off the charts. Amazing.
Nice comments. Very nice.
So go ahead.
Yeah, we've worked hard on it, and we appreciate that kind of feedback, and we continue to work hard on it and listen to, what users come up with. Sometimes users will have problems and we'll work directly with them. We dedicate ourselves to customer support to make sure we continue to provide a good, good result for everybody.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about our team is that every person on our team, from the highest developer to, designers to marketing, everybody participates in answering customers' questions. So we're very dedicated to that.
Oh, is that right? You don't have just a dedicated person taking care of.
Well, we do have one person that's the only thing he does, but everybody participates in that on a daily basis. So.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Terry, you told me you're an editor.
Yeah, I started editing in 1988 in Seattle at a post house here, Alpha Cine, and then was there for about 7 years before I moved to London to work for Lightworks, which is still a nonlinear editor, and at that time it was used a lot for film editing. So I worked there for a while, but I've always been exhilarated by editing. It's just my favorite thing to do. I could do it for 15 hours a day and just get into the zone and really be in it. And I think it's the best job on earth. So I'll continue to do that. But working at LumaTouch is also super fun. It's just having this team building something that I've always dreamed of. It's just great.
So I presume you edit with LumaFusion now?
Oh,
primarily?
only.
Only. There you go.
If I can't do it on LumaFusion, I will figure out a way. And if I can't figure out a way, I put a feature request in our backlog.
There's been a few edits that Terry's done where she's come to me and said, "Hey, we have a little problem with this," and that's when we often find some of the things we need to do to make it better.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I imagine I don't have an iPad Pro. I just have an iPad Air 2 right now, and it runs fantastic on that. I can imagine it flies on the iPad Pro.
Yeah, I just got the latest iPad Pro 11-inch, and I thought my other iPad Pro was fast until I got this, and then I went back to my earlier iPad Pro, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not nearly as fast as I thought it was. But the new one is just great. It's really buttery smooth and just really nice.
Yeah, I'm amazed. I'm just simply amazed. You have so many features. Like I said, you have title tools. You have the audio ducking. You have the ability to change windows. How many layers of video can you have at this point?
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, currently it's 3 layers of video plus 3 additional, which can all have audio, and 3 additional audio layers. And that's one of the features that's actually coming up. Probably not the next release, but fairly soon will be at least 1 additional audio track or video track, and we may also allow additional graphic tracks as well. So we're currently working on the user interface because, again, when you're on the iPad, the user interface has to be quite a bit different. But we have some really fun ideas there to make that flexible and capable, while at the same time still keeping the performance and usability on the iPad. And
yeah, that's important, I'm sure. Keeping that performance going. Yeah. That's one of the challenges that Final Cut Pro has itself. Yeah. So I've seen, so what about one of the, I'm going to go to some of the requests that I've seen. What about multicam?
I'll let you answer that, Terry.
Well, okay. So, so this has kind of been something that we've kept in the bag for a while, but since we're here, we are planning a multicam release after NAB. Will be full-on development for that. So that's the news here.
Now that's impossible. There's no way you can do multicam on an iPad.
Well, we already have it designed, and I work to really focus on what it is you want to do, and try to come up with something that would be fun and usable to do multicam. So I'm really looking forward to that. But we have to wait. We have other features coming first. So, but in the background, we're getting the design ready and getting some users set up to test it. So
that is fantastic. So you're going to be at NAB this year?
We are. We won't be showing multicam yet,
right?
But we'll be have our XML export and a couple other things, video stabilization and
external monitor support.
Monitor support. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Video stabilization on an iPad.
Yeah. So that'll be a pre-process function where you'll be able to select video stabilization, stabilize any of your video. We'll have a number of parameters and a number of ways to do stabilization, but it's looking really good. That's already running, and we're just testing it and getting it ready for beta right now, but we'll have that ready for NAB. That's going to be really cool.
And the other one was external
monitor support. So yeah, so if you hook up your iPad to, through HDMI or even through AirPlay, actually, to an external monitor, you can see the video output and actually, do your preview and, say do your color correction right on the external monitor so that you can see what, the customer's going to see rather than doing it on the small screen.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. What about the USB-C port on the iPad Pro? Is that ever, I know right now you can't connect to a hard drive, but do you think that's ever going to be enabled, that you could?
Yeah, we do think that's coming. And actually there's some users who found some interesting workarounds to at least get some functionality out of that. And we do think that'll happen in the long run. Yeah.
So as far as multicam, what about syncing audio with video? Is that possible?
That will be part of that release.
Yeah.
Okay, so along with multicam, you'll be able to sync audio with video.
Yeah,
Yep.
so there'll be, well, what we're planning is to have the ability to sync by audio waveforms, or sync by time code, or sync by markers.
So what happens when Apple offers to buy you out?
Well,
I mean,
we'll have to see the offer. We really like what we're doing, and but we, of course, if that were to come about, and we could be, it could give us even more capabilities to bring more to the customers. Sure, we'd consider that.
Oh, there you
I mean, the
go.
bottom line is we're just enjoying what we're doing so much that it would be a real. It would actually be a sad thing if someone.
Well, you could say no. You could say no.
Yeah. I mean, logically, yes, you could.
and we really do function well as a small team, and I think that actually, we've been able to work as fast as we can because of the kind of team we've put together, and we'd hate to ruin that.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Well, one of the things that I've talked about for a while. I'm a Final Cut Pro Apple certified trainer. I've been doing it since version 5 for like 10 years now. And not Apple, but other people have said, well, why don't you get on the Final Cut Pro beta team? And I always say, because then I won't be able to talk about Final Cut Pro the way I do now. And I like being surprised on Christmas Day rather than not being surprised when it comes out.
Yeah.
I have a radio show. I have this live TV stuff. If I was on the beta, I couldn't be talking about any of this stuff.
That is true. Yeah,
so
yeah,
I do
yeah.
it, I like speculating and talking about things. But I'm very friendly with the people that I know on the team out there. So one of the other questions, Kyle O Creative says, are there plans to add syncing second system audio to Luma or multicam features? That's coming out post NAB. Those two features.
We're working on it post NAB. Yeah. So I don't know the date that it would come out, but we're definitely already have the design in hand, and so it's on the roadmap.
Yeah.
And it's feasible on the iPad. That's what amazes me.
Yeah.
For sure. It's mostly a UI challenge. It's just
really?
Yeah. We're already doing 4. We'll be doing 4 tracks. So it's just how to make it flow and feel fun and feel easy, and it's a complicated subject. So there's a lot of things that people want to do when they're multicam, slipping things and adjusting things. So we had to come up with a design that supplies those workflows.
So one of the things, when I was working this morning, I just pulled up one of my galleries or something, and it pulled up all my clips. It looks like they're on iCloud. Is that where they are?
Yeah, you can get media in a wide variety of different ways. If it's on your device, you can have them in the photo library, which can also be in an iCloud photo library. So there may or may not be on your device, and LumaFusion will automatically start downloading it as soon as you need to use it. We also have a lot of other ways to get media in. You can use wireless and network drives. We have really nice integrations with the Western Digital Wireless Pro and the NAR box, both which are external drives that you can use in the field. The NAR box is a wonderfully ruggedized drive that you can use out in the field, bring all your media from different sources. For example, let's say you have a drone or a DSLR or any other cameras, pop them right into that drive, and then they're immediately available to browse and use within LumaFusion easily and flexibly.
Well, we're going to talk more about those drives in a minute, because that fascinates me. So what I think happened when I was here this morning, I set an in and out point. And is it just downloading the portion between the in and the out point?
At this point, no, it's actually downloading the entire clip. Now, with the NAR box, interestingly enough, it does actually trim and give you just the portion that you want to use. But they're currently the only one that allows us to do that. But generally, it's fast enough. That's another place where with the iCloud photo library, it's a fairly quick download, even for the full clip in most cases.
Okay. I was wondering about that, because I would send it in an out point, then I see it was downloading. It said it's downloading. Then I just place it on the timeline, and it's just there. But none of this stuff was on my iPad. I was amazed that it went to got to all those. I said, wow, there's all kinds of things that I could use right now for a little demo. So one of the things you have that I really enjoy is the scrolling timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to, I've been after that for years. Everybody seems to have it, but I really like that. I like the stationary playhead aspect of it.
Funnily enough, on an iPad, it's the only choice because you can't put your finger right at the very edge of the screen or you lose contact with the device. So having that center play line is basically required.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the other things I did this morning is you can color code clips on the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which I really like. I can do that in Logic as well. And you also have you can rename a clip. Now, when you rename a clip on the timeline, is that only renaming that portion?
That's correct. Yeah, the timeline is separate from the library. If you rename something in the library, when you drag it to the timeline, it'll use that name, but then you can rename it on the timeline. It won't affect your original library. So you can keep it separate.
And the same for color. You can colorize a clip in the timeline and then change the color. In the library, and then change the color on the timeline. But you can also use the search function, which we just came out with last year, to search for a color. So if I search for blue, I'm going to find anything with blue in the metadata and in the name, and also anything that is tagged with a blue color. So you can use this search functionality to really organize.
Right. That's really, really nice. So what about some of these requests that come in? I'm going like, they can't do that on the iPad, but so far you've done every one. What about waveform and scopes or waveform scopes? Is that possible?
We do. Yeah, it's certainly possible. That's something that's a little farther out, but it is on our roadmap. It's something we certainly want to do, and that's certainly feasible for sure.
Okay, so let's talk about the NARBox and the Western Digital drives. Did you guys approach them, or how did you guys get together so it works with LumaFusion?
They actually approached us in both cases, and we had users who were using some of the drives and wanted to do it, but in both cases, they approached us and had APIs available that we could use to create a better integration with those drives than we would with a normal drive, so that we can have the icons, we can get metadata before they're downloaded. You can preview the media and scrub through it and do your trimming of in and out points before having to download anything. So it makes it a lot easier to manage your storage, on your iPad, because for a lot of particularly the older iPads, the storage is at a premium. Now Apple,
absolutely,
sure. Apple's given us a little better capabilities, especially with the newest iPad with a 1 terabyte. But even then, it's still nice, to be able to manage your storage offline as well.
Absolutely. So those drives connect wirelessly, right?
That's correct. They connect wirelessly, and so they basically produce their own network that you connect to from the iPad, and then it just, as far as LumaFusion goes, it just shows up in the library, and you can browse the way you would anything else. You can, again, rename and tag with colors and trim your media, and then just start using it in the timeline, and it will just download what it needs. Particularly with the NARBox, it'll download just the section it needs to use in the timeline, with a little extra on the ends for trimming.
If you're working remotely out in the woods or on the top of a mountain, they're still going to generate that wireless signal, and you can still get the media over to your iPad. So that's super cool.
Yeah, and I'll tell you a little secret that's not too secret, but NARBox is coming out with a new drive very soon, their version 2, and it has some really neat new capabilities, specifically with the USB-C port on the iPad Pro. I won't say exactly because I'm not sure if they've publicly announced it yet, but they've got some cool stuff coming as well. So it's going to make it even more powerful and faster and more flexible for working with media.
Yeah, if the iPad Pro would connect to USB-C drives, SSD drives, that would be phenomenal. I mean, if it would work with LumaFusion. Yeah,
we certainly hope for that in the future. Right now, that isn't possible, not directly, but we certainly hope to see that in the future.
So in the chat, Marcelo says, are there many capability differences between the iPad and the iPhone versions? I mean, obviously, screen real estate is a limiting factor in the iPhone. I didn't try it, but does the iPhone, can you do it horizontal, LumaFusion, or just vertical? You can.
Yeah, you can do both. Yeah, you can
Okay.
use it both directions, and there are no differences in features between the iPhone and the iPad. It is just screen real estate. I mean, I personally definitely find it a little easier to, edit on the iPad like you do, but we do have a lot of users out there who actually shoot on their iPhones, edit on their iPhones, and upload directly from their iPhones without using anything else. So it's pretty amazing.
It is amazing. Now, you guys said you started this project with the mobile journalist in mind, or
yeah. I mean, they were definitely our core audience in the beginning, and so we worked closely with a lot of people from that were involved with MojoCon, or which is now Mojo Fest. And they just gave us a lot of great feedback and ideas about what they needed to be able to shoot, edit, and deliver from the field. Like, for instance, the ability to take a stereo audio clip that had 2 mic sources and separate those out so that you can independently control them. That came from them, one of their first requests. And so stuff like that came. But, having been an editor for my whole career, I had, and Chris as well, we had this giant list of features that we knew that we wanted. In fact, when we first released LumaFusion, 90 days before release, we started a countdown of features. So every day we would announce a new feature on Twitter, and I would make a little video. Right? Yeah, I made 90 videos in 90 days.
Wow.
Showing different features. But Twitter tends to be a lot of news people, so that got a lot of news people involved with the project early on.
Right. No, I can absolutely see you could just stay in LumaFusion. Well, I would definitely get an iPad Pro if I was doing that, though, and I might at some point. But right now, I'm just on the iPad Air 2.
Yeah, I mean, it is faster, and it's easier with 4K media, but they both work great, and you won't tell the difference from that. We didn't remove functionality on the iPhone. We don't remove it on iPad Air 2, so it's about the same, just faster.
Yeah.
So you work with native 4K media?
It's any H.264 or H.265 media. It has to be encoded in one of those 2 formats. We don't support ProRes. The iOS doesn't currently support that. That's another one I'd hope that Apple may add in the future, but we have no idea, whether that'll happen or not.
So if Apple adds it, then you would possibly...
We would actually get it automatically. When they started supporting HEVC or H.265, it just started working automatically because we spent a lot of time up front making sure we do things the way Apple want you to do them, and so we get some of that new functionality almost for free in most cases. We get a few new bugs once in a while from them for free too, and then we have to work around those. But that's part of life.
Absolutely. Well, they do fine with introducing bugs here and there. They do that pretty good on their own. So a question from Kripa. With the iPad Pro now as powerful as some laptops, do you see a future where the majority of editing is done on mobile, with desktop systems only used for finishing or VXF heavy work?
I see a future where everything is done on some sort of device that isn't technically a laptop. I mean, if you look, we're carrying around less and less with us as we travel more and we have busier lives. So everything is going to be smaller and on devices like this. And touch is obviously, for editing, it's so much more engaging to be able to touch and move your media around and just feel that control. So I would think that, yes, we just have to keep working on getting those features in and getting the controls in that people need to edit professionally. And then hopefully the codec support and other things like that will come along. So yeah, I do see that future.
Well, you're already doing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we have a lot of users who are already doing it. It depends on the workflow. There's still need for finishing, obviously, and higher end color correction that we don't yet have. But for a lot of our users, we get pictures all the time where they're on a plane, editing, something that's going, that's an important feature for them, and doing it entirely on the iPad and finishing there. So it's certainly possible for a lot of the workflows out there.
Yeah,
so
and I do all of our editing on
Yeah.
LumaFusion. I made a commitment when we started. No more Final Cut. Sorry, Final Cut, but no more Final Cut or other products, and just to commit to LumaFusion. And actually, what has happened is I find I edit more often and feel I can do it in between other things easier. So I find myself just editing for fun. And I think it's brought back to me this joy of storytelling. Like I'll edit something together because I can and because it's right there and it's fun to do, rather than saying, oh, okay, now I'm going to sit down and for the next 10 hours, I'm going to be sitting here, take a deep breath. We're going to do this. I don't have
Sure.
that anymore. I just have this joy. Oh, my iPad's there. I'm going to put together a funny video, or it brings back the fun to editing that I first experienced when I started editing. Now I have it with me all the time, and then so when you're tasked with doing an important project, professional level project, you feel really almost like it's just this joy has been brought back to that process. And so this is what I love about LumaFusion.
Yeah, this isn't work.
Yeah.
this is.
I did that yesterday for fun. I can do it today for work, and it feels about the same.
Right. So if you used a NLE at this point, which one would you be using if you did use one?
Well, I've always been a Final Cut Pro fan. We worked for Avid, and I used Media Composer for a long time. But I would definitely be using Final Cut.
Yes, same with me. I've been using it since version, I think 1.5, something like that. So there's a comment about the Narbox speed. How fast is the transfer speed right now?
The version 1, I don't know the exact numbers. The version 1, I'll just say right offhand, feels a little slow sometimes.
Okay.
But I can tell you right now, the version 2 is the specs that they've given me on that compared to the current version 1 is going to be out of this world. It's faster than anything else we've seen at this point. I think people will be happy with it. I'll admit that sometimes it can be a little pokey, on the current V1, but it's still very usable. And from a management of your media standpoint, it's incredible, especially when you're out in the field and with its ruggedized capabilities. But yeah, that's one of the complaints they've had is it's a little slow. But V2, I think, will make people very happy in that regard.
Do you think V2 will be out for NAB this year?
That's their intention, and it might be out before. I'm not sure their exact dates, but that's certainly they'll certainly have it there, and I think their intention is to release it before NAB. Well, one of the things about NAB that's sort of fun is we're actually partnering up with a few different companies to do sort of a mobile editing workflow group of booths. So we'll be with ourselves, with Narbox, with Filmic Pro. They do the most well-known camera app on iPhone, and then also Rhino, who does gear for cameras for doing different kinds of shots, the slide shots and things like that. And so we'll all be together, in a nice booth that gives you a whole nice workflow for mobile editing and filming.
So when you use a Narbox or the Western Digital drives, it downloads the media to the iPad?
That's correct. When you're ready to use it. So when you're browsing it and trimming it, it doesn't have to download it. You can preview it and trim it and browse it. As soon as you drag it to the timeline, that's when it downloads it to the iPad to be used.
Oh, I see. And then I guess I didn't get into the media management video. You have one. I saw it. So once you're done with the project, I presume you want to get that media off. Does it go back to the Narbox?
Well, you can archive our projects with all the media and store that on the Narbox. You can also at any time off the Narbox and other drives, or like the WD wireless, you can just remove it from the iPad at any point. And if you then reopen that project, we'll download it again if needed. So as long as you haven't deleted it off the Narbox.
Oh, I see. That's interesting, because obviously media management on an iPad is at a premium.
That's correct, yeah.
I have a 1 terabyte drive on my iMac. I have a 2017 iMac, and I'm constantly deleting stuff.
Right.
I'm not going to pay for the 2 terabyte SSD drive. It's crazy expensive.
It's expensive, yeah.
So
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. So
I'm just constantly media managing stuff to get the stuff off my desktop and stuff so I have space left over.
Right. And that's one thing that's surprised people about the Final Cut Pro XML export is it's not just the project, so you don't have to manage your media, getting it onto the desktop computer, because the XML project package includes the project and the media for your project to work in Final Cut. So it's really just export to Final Cut, and then the media opens up and the project opens up with the media connected.
You mean if Final Cut doesn't have the media, it will actually send the media with the XML?
That's correct.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, how you have to export? So you'll export the XML as a file to one of the NAR box or something else, I presume?
Well, normally, I think the most common workflow, we actually create a zip file with the media, any media needed, plus the XML. And you could, probably the simplest way is to airdrop it actually to your Mac, and then just double tap on it and open it, and then double click on the XML, and you're ready to go. We're looking at some other ways to make that even easier, but that's currently the method we have in the beta.
Well, that's very ingenious. I mean, you two are very smart. I mean, you are.
Thanks.
You really are. You guys are doing stuff that I just can't imagine being done on an iPad. I mean, because look at, Apple has billions and billions of dollars. They have more money than many countries, yet they have iMovie on the iPad.
Well, iMovie is a great starting editing app, of course, but it's I think when, the difference is simply the fact that we saw early on the potential to do professional editing on the iPad, before, where they saw it from, more of a consumer kind of thing, just to sell more iPads. We said, hey, we really see the value in a smaller customer base that's doing professional things. And, it was worth it to us. It probably at the time, at least, wasn't worth it to Apple. So, to put the money in to do that to meet that kind of audience needs. Yeah.
For a niche. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, people have been talking about bringing Final Cut Pro to the iPad for a long time. And I've always said that I don't want it on the iPad because I wasn't a big fan of iOS for something like Final Cut Pro. But LumaFusion has completely changed my mind because it's so sophisticated, and it has so many features that a regular desktop NLE has, plus other features that they don't have.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that, I mean, when you double tap on a clip in LumaFusion and you get into this whole array of nice editors that you can use your fingers with to touch and move your clips and put different effects on, and just the ease of that and the speed that you can do that in LumaFusion is really, it's just astounding. And that's what makes it so fun to use.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So audio levels right now, somebody requested adding points with touching. Can you do that now?
You can add keyframes in, but you can't just drag, well, what you can do is you can move your time and then adjust the volume, and it'll automatically create keyframes as you go.
Okay.
You can't drag on the graph itself, which is something, we do have on our backlog again. I don't know when that feature will come in, but we'll certainly be continuing to improve keyframing for both audio and video effects in the future.
Well, the same person also said editing 4K 10-bit log footage on an iPad Pro. Are you kidding me? 10-bit?
Yeah, you can do 10-bit log footage. Now, right now, we don't output 10-bit. We only output 8-bit, but you can bring in and use 10-bit log footage as long as it's HD.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's see what else we have here. So one of the questions, I noticed Filmic Pro in one of your videos. How do you guys work with them? Anything specific that you guys work together? Any kind of a handshake?
You want to mention it? You want to say it, Terry?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So we work very closely. We've worked closely with the Filmic team. They're a great team, and they've obviously been used in a number of films. Tangerine, that was nominated for an Academy Award, and Steven Soderbergh used it in his iPhone shot film. So we were lucky enough to meet with the team. They're based in Seattle, near where Terry's based as well. But the biggest thing we've done with them is they have the ability to shoot log in the app, and they've given us their D-Log LUTs that you can use within our app to get the best quality color out from the footage that you capture off of their app. So that's one of the main areas. And then we just in our latest update that we just released, we supported a higher bit rate up to 150 megabit output, because they also increased their capabilities for capture to 138 megabit capture capabilities. So,
and I think they are writing to Narbox as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I think they also have the ability to write directly to Narbox as it captures. I believe that's correct. I haven't used that myself. And then we also have a really nice workflow for easily transferring media from Filmic Pro to LumaFusion through the Files app that Apple provides. So it's just really easy to drag a number of clips directly from one app to the other for editing.
So one of the problems I have with working on an iPad is when I go back to my MacBook Pro, I'm always touching the screen.
Me too.
Constantly. I'm like, why doesn't this work? I have a QuickTime video up, and I keep clicking the little arrow to play, and it won't play. And it's serious. I really do that all the time. Boy, if they ever got a touch screen MacBook Pro, that would be phenomenal.
Would be nice. I would like that myself.
Yeah, a lot of people would. I mean, you don't have to use it, but the fact that, it would be nice to have. So let me see. Tim Olson in our chat says, as a longtime editor, I love LumaFusion. A lot of potential. LumaFusion feels like the future of editing. How often have you heard that?
Quite a bit recently, actually. Yeah, it's I think we are on the cusp of something. And the nice thing is, I think we're only at the beginning of it. We've got so much we want to do, and we have good plans to do it. So if people just have to be a little patient, as we get, but we'll keep bringing features out and keep making it better. So yeah, we're really excited by that.
So NLE, people are constantly requesting features from an NLE that NLEs have on the desktop. Is there going to be any limit that you guys won't be able? I mean, obviously you can't do 20 tracks on an iPad, but
right, there will be some limit, though. I have a feeling the hardware on the mobile hardware will catch up as well. So maybe down the road that won't be a limit. And we even have some ways that we hope we could work around that as well. Maybe not in the we have ideas in all these areas. But yes, I think, I don't think there's any limit. The one key differentiator on the iPad is that we can't just randomly throw plugins in, for example, from third parties. However, even there, we're working with some third parties so that we could bring in some of their functionality in the future as well. So I don't see any limit. I think it's just a matter of time and continued effort.
So I never thought about plugins. How do plugins work with LumaFusion? For example, you can't use audio unit plugins, can you?
Well, you know what? We actually can. We've disabled that capability in the current version because there's a real mix of quality in audio unit plugins, but we do plan on bringing that back in a future update. As far as video effects plugins, there isn't currently an architecture for that iOS provides. But like I said, we're talking to some of the big plugin manufacturers to talk to them about bringing their functionality where we could build it in instead of having it be a plugin that the user has to deal with and still have that be available.
So the iOS supports AU plugins, audio unit plugins?
They do, yeah, absolutely. And there's a number of them out there. Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a wide variety of them out there. There are apps right now. In fact, GarageBand will support audio unit plugins, and there's a number of companies that sell them. And there are, and so we will bring that back to LumaFusion as well, where you'll be able to use those directly in the app.
Okay. So Gilbert Tang says, sorry, just got here. Has anybody asked about standard USB-C storage access, read and write? Well, that's up to Apple, right?
That is up to Apple, yeah. And we have to wait for them to support it. Yes.
Right. They just put the first USB-C port on the iPad Pro. And it's on the iPad Pro only, right? It's not on the lower iPads?
No, just on the iPad Pro. But I think we'll see it move across over time, is my guess.
And then they would have to enable the ability to read and write to a hard drive, USB-C hard drive.
Yeah, they would have to give us some APIs that we could access to do that directly, or build it into the operating system in another way where we could just directly treat it like a normal file. Hopefully we'll see that in the future.
So version 1.7 just came out, right?
That's correct.
Is the version at NAB going to be 1.8? I presume.
Yes. Yeah, that'll be 1.8. And in fact, it might be by then, it might be 1.9. So we might have one release in between and then 1.9. So yeah.
Okay. Do you know where you're going to be at NAB? What area yet? Has that been worked out? What
Yes.
floor or location?
Are we in the Central Hall?
Yeah, we're in Central Hall, and I can tell you right now, I don't know our exact booth number off the top of my head, but we're actually near the B&H
right.
booth. So we
that's good.
picked that area. So yeah, so if people walk around that area, you'll find us.
Yeah.
Yes. I've been there for the last 2 years. I've been going there mostly for Final Cut Pro related stuff. Apple does a presentation on Monday nights. They do one on Monday nights. So usually I'm there for that. And then I go to the Blackmagic booth. And they have like a city block.
Exactly. It's like a football field there, yeah.
Yeah, they have the giant, because I'm always curious. They're just such a interesting company because like last year they introduced the Blackmagic 4K Pocket Cinema camera for $1,300.
Yeah.
And they still haven't caught up on demand or whatever. There's still, still a backlog. It came out in September, October, and it's still a backlog. So I wonder if they're going to offer a V2 at NAB.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I always look forward to seeing what Blackmagic has because they just have such cool hardware there. I always love to walk around. Yeah,
I remember when they first introduced the first camera, everybody was shocked that they did a camera, So, and then they bought Resolve and started working with that, and they offer a free version of Resolve 15. So I'm presuming 16 is going to be at NAB. That's usually what they do.
Yeah,
either that or 15.5. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? That's right.
So and then the other thing is Apple has pre-announced, unusually, but they've pre-announced a new version or an update to Final Cut Pro for the first half of 2019 to deal with identifying and converting legacy media.
Because people were,
they pre-announced it because people were. Some people were concerned about the idea that legacy media is not going to be supported in a future version of the OS, which is probably next fall. So Apple came out and said, Final Cut Pro, the new version that's going to be, they said an update is going to be forthcoming in 2019 that will identify and convert legacy media. So the question I have for Apple is, okay, so that'll work with Mojave. Will that work with the new Mac OS that comes out in the fall, that feature of Final Cut? That's what I'm curious about.
That's a good question. It's always hard to know.
Well, the thing is, usually they don't take features away because of an OS update.
Yeah,
right.
Usually not. My guess is, if I were to make a guess, I would guess that they're building that into the app itself so that it will be separate from the operating system so that they can pull it out of the operating system, but still have the capability to convert that media as needed and then have it run natively, within the app. And my guess would be they almost keep it somewhat separate from the app itself so that, the main functionality of the app, so they don't have to support that going forward, but could still meet the user's needs in that regard. That'd be my guess, or at least that's what I would do.
Sure. But that would be phenomenal if they did that, because that would alleviate a lot of the concern that is, the Mac OS is not going to support. I've heard so many different stories about what's going on there. There's conspiracy theories that Apple's trying to, which I don't believe that. But other people, I know Larry Jordan he contacted Avid and contacted Premiere and contacted Resolve and got these sometimes conflicting answers as to what's going on. But that would be great if the version of Final Cut Pro that comes out in the next 6 months also does identifying and converting with the new Mac OS. That would be very, very good.
Yeah, that's what
that would go a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
It's actually kind of amazing that they told us anything.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I like the new Apple. I mean, the new Apple, well, the Final Cut Pro aspect, Apple itself, I mean, they came out and they did a press conference, not a press conference, but a invitation-only event to talk about the Mac Pro a couple years ago because they were getting such criticism about it. And some of it's rightfully so, because I didn't buy the Mac Pro. I like the old cheese grater much better than the cylinder. and I didn't need it. The iMac was plenty good for me, but they came out and they did a, hey, we messed up. We did some things that we didn't think were going to happen, and we got a new Mac Pro coming out in 2019. And then the Final Cut Pro team at not NAB, at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit in Cupertino in November, they had a private meeting with all the attendees. I was one of them, and they were very open about stuff. Yeah, that's great. And that's unusual.
Yeah, I think they've realized, particularly with professional users, you need to give them a little more information, of what's coming so that they can be ready for it. Surprising them with big changes isn't the most useful thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I really enjoy the two events that I enjoy that I go to. I'm on the East Coast, by the way.
Okay.
I'm outside of Baltimore and Washington on the East Coast. So I go to Las Vegas for NAB typically, and I go to the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit in Cupertino. Now, this last year, they had all the fires. And it was everything was smoky, even outside during the day. It wasn't horrible. I guess if you had, conditions, as breathing conditions, it might have been worse, but it wasn't too bad.
That's good.
So that'll be great then. We'll get to see you guys at NAB if I get there this year. I'm not sure if I'm going yet. And so you said you're going to probably be in Central Hall.
Yeah, Central Hall, near the back, near where the B&H photo booth is. So
I buy so much stuff from B&H. I know I've put some of their kids through college. It's constant and chronic. I buy stuff from them. Have we covered everything, do you think?
I think so. Anything else, Charity?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm just so glad that you invited us on, and I'm really excited that we were able to both be here.
My pleasure. Oh, well, let's talk about, you were talking about a future feature that people have requested that is a little more complex than it seems on surface, which is multi-select. It's multi-select.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to give an example of how, we'll get mails that say, why don't you just let me multi-select? Because it should be easy. I just want a button that says multi-select, and then I'll multi-select. But the real challenge, and we will do it, but the real challenge isn't in just being able to multi-select. It's what you do with that media once you've multi-selected it, when you cut it and paste it somewhere else, and you have a different configuration or an odd configuration, like a long music clip and small video or a strange compilation, and then you paste that somewhere else. We need to make sure our logic is good and provide you something expected. So if the devil is in the details when you say multi-select, can you group those things together? Can you apply an effect? What happens if you apply keyframing to all the things in the group? How does it behave? So that's sometimes these little features that seem really easy can be very challenging to figure out and make them right.
What's another feature that's people have been requesting that they think is very easy that hasn't been? Most of them?
I think that's probably the biggest one that, it comes to mind. But even adding more tracks to the timeline, why can't you add more tracks? Well, we can add more tracks, but let's do it in a way that's going to be pleasing and beautiful when you have to scroll those tracks, not just so that you're always scrolling up and down and not able to see your whole timeline. So it requires this added interface and this added interaction that we want to get right. So sometimes things are just, we're going to get there. It just takes us a little bit of time.
Well, yeah, you guys, you seem like you're very open to suggestions, and you realize when people ask for things that, yes, it needs that. If we can do it, we certainly will. And everything has to be, done in a certain order, and you don't want to compromise another feature or compromise performance on the iPad because you have limited resources on an iPad.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right.
So
And
we're always careful about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have to design for the biggest iPad and the smallest iPhone that we support. So that's where the challenge comes. It's just that
fantastic.
interaction. Yeah.
Yeah, airdropping media is a great idea. I never thought about that. I'm thinking, you got to connect a USB-C drive or go to one of the special drives. Is Western Digital, are they updating their drive, do you know? Like Norbox is?
Yeah, I don't know anything specific. We have a nice integration with them right now, but we haven't heard anything specific coming of what's coming from them at this point. So, yeah.
Okay, because both of those drives can be used without internet. And
That's
without
correct.
a computer, right?
That's correct. Yes. Yeah.
So those are nice features as well.
Yeah. So they create their own wireless signal. So once you're connected to that, then you can preview and mark in and out on the from media that's still on the drive.
Very good. Exciting times.
Yes, for sure. And honestly, we are just so humbled and honored to be working on LumaFusion and working on something that's been sort of a lifelong passion for me and for Chris. Just to be where we are is just super exciting, and we're just very glad. Feel very lucky.
Well, the video editing community, which I'm a member, is very appreciative of the work that you've done on this, because you've gone way above and beyond what anything else that's available on the iPad. I mean, exponentially. I mean, everything else I've seen, iMovie and some other apps, they're just what I would expect to be on the iPad, but you've gone way, way above that.
Thank you.
So from the community, thank you as well.
Thanks.
Have we covered everything?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to contact us directly. You can, like Terry said before, info@lumatouch.com is an easy way to get a hold of us. Also on Twitter, there's a lot of different ways you can connect with us, and we're always happy to answer.
So the website is luma-touch.com, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
And let me see. So social media, it's @LumaTouch.
@LumaTouch.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's on Twitter. And what else was I going to ask you about? Oh, your YouTube channel. Is that LumaTouch as well?
Yes, there's a LumaTouch YouTube channel that has a load of tutorials and other.
A load? You have dozens and dozens.
Yes,
Yeah.
And I presume they were all cut on LumaFusion.
Yes.
I think they were.
And we're working on putting in a little studio in Seattle. So we're hoping to be updating those more regularly and getting some new, fresh tutorials out there pretty soon. So.
Excellent. Yeah, because if you got version 1.8 and 1.9 possibly coming out, you're going to have to put up, because you have 1.7 update. Yes. I started going through those tutorials this morning. I'm going, but there's so many. I mean, the basics. You have one about titles, color and effects, audio live mixing, audio, how to record a voiceover. And then you have multiple, you have titles, advanced titles, previewing, pre-trimming, arranging clips in the timeline. I mean, there's literally dozens and dozens of video tutorials up there, which are fantastic. They really are.
We were lucky to have Epic Tutorials do a whole batch of tutorials for us before he moved to working for Filmic Pro. Oh. So now we're tasked with continuing to provide updated tutorials. So we're going to get on that pretty soon.
Very good. So this has been really, really good. Everybody's enjoying it on the chat and social media everywhere. What I do is when I do one of these live things, I not only post it on Twitter, but I belong to like 6, 7, 8, 9 Final Cut Pro groups. That's where it goes at. Plus my own personal page, so people can tune in.
So yeah, I mean, tell your users if there are, or your listeners, if there are people that feel like they could be active beta testers for Final Cut Pro export, then we would be glad to put them on. Just email us at info@luma-touch.com.
Very good.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure.
Absolutely. And hopefully I'll see you at NAB this year. I definitely will stop by.
Great.
Right,
Looking forward. Okay.
Okay. Talk to you later. You can hang on. I'm just going to stop the broadcast, but you can hang on for a second.
Okay.